I met Rose in, I think, 1974. And Rose Martin and Sally Vinter were involved in the change program through the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. And Sally was looking for a piece of people from different agencies to help with what they later called the coffee sips, to help connect with the residents of North Maple Public Housing. And Judge O'Brien was extremely supportive of this, and I got the job, I think because of Sally, as volunteer coordinator, and he gave a piece of me to Sally and Rose. And I'll tell you, having a piece of you with Sally and Rose is something amazing. And that's when I first met Rose.
I was teaching at one of the local schools nearby, and I had a little boy that wouldn't talk. And he had the sharpest eyes and the brightest smile. You knew that he was in there, but he wouldn't talk. And he lived close to Peace, and I'd heard about Rose, so I came over and talked to her, and she knew this little boy and his family. She told me exactly what to do. You know, Rose always knew what to do. And I followed her directions, and before long, this little boy was speaking and reading out loud, and it was just a wonderful transformation. And that's how I first became acquainted with Rose Martin.
Oh my God, I've known Rose my entire life. So since I was young, pretty young, 4th or 5th grade, I was just telling my son in the car that what I remember most about Rose is that when you first meet her and the way my interaction was with her, I felt really special. And but then I realized she treated everybody special. I don't know, I felt like she was a god, because she just was so good to people. Like, it just didn't matter what your background was, what your struggles were, who you were. She just loved you like unconditionally. And that had a significant impact on my life, because I think at a time when I really needed love, she was just there to show me that kind of love.
And I met Rose back in 1992. I had just got released from prison. And my mom seen Rose Martin and said, "That's the lady you need to be with." And I didn't have a clue who she was. But my mom told me to get in her vehicle and don't let her put me out. She started talking to me about recovery, which was my first engagement with substance abuse, and trying to learn how to not use, which was very difficult. As I was staying with Rose, my kids would come and stay at Rose's house as well, and that was the beginning of the relationship that my children got with Rose, especially Delicia.
In 1992, I met my Rose through my mom, Lily Pender. She was just getting out of prison, and I went over her house for a weekend and had so much fun. When the weekend came, I did not want to leave. At that time in my life, I just needed the support, and she gave me everything I needed. She taught us how to live. She taught us lessons. She taught me everything. She became my mom. She taught me how to not to be afraid to go out there and take chances. She taught me how to love. I call her my Rose because she taught me how to love. She protected me. She guarded me. She made sure I knew how to take care of myself today. And that's why I call her my Rose.
I came in contact with Rose about 30 years ago. My mother came to her and asked her, could she help me out? I was serving a life sentence. And for 26 years, she fought to get me out. And within 30 years of me knowing her, she never gave up on me. During the process of trying to get me out, to win my freedom, Rose, my mother, would often meet. Matter of fact, Rose would say that she'll meet Mama on the street sometime, and Mama would sneak her and give her $20 talking about, here, can this help my Johnny? This will help you out. And they just had that special relationship, Matter of fact, Mama used to call Rose her mother. Even though my mother was 87 years old at the time. And I would tell her, I said, Mama, Rose ain't your mother, And she said, anybody who treat me like Rose treat me got to be my mother.
Rose just had an innate ability to know a person's heart. She knew what was inside of them. She could see what other people couldn't see. And she was almost always right. It was just amazing.
So she didn't waste her time on people who wouldn't try. She wasn't for everybody, okay? But boy, when she committed herself to somebody, there were no limits to how far she would go to help them, and they knew it. And she did it with love, and they knew they were loved. And that gave them the courage and the support to maybe do things and struggle in a way they had never done before. And it was an amazing thing to watch.
I met Rose some years ago. I can't remember exactly how many years ago it was, but I had moved back to Ann Arbor after a divorce and spending a little bit of time in jail. And I was in the Delona Center shelter at the time. And I met Rose during the time that I was there. She came one day and asked me to come closer to her truck, and she wanted to see my eyes. She looked in my eyes and she said, "Yep, just as I figured." And I just happened to be going through a lot at the time with my divorce, and I just lost my job, and in the process of all this, my dad passed away, and I was just kind of all over the place. And Rose really helped me a lot to get through those things. I mean, she became the best friend that I've ever had. And since Rose passed away, I hadn't really focused a lot on her, because that's a wound that just hadn't healed at this point.
At Gilman Science, she had got me a job there. I stayed there for 7 years. I was using the whole time. Then I finally lost my job. And then that was my down spiral with using. Rose took my place for my daughter, and I was truly grateful for that. She stood in and guided her, showed her stuff, through my absence. I had gave my daughter to my mom. Rose would go over there and say, "Hey, Miss Liz, can I get her?" And she was able to get her and take over in my place.
I met Rose when I was about 4 years old. At that time, we was living out in the South Maple complex. And I remember the Peace Center van coming out there, and I would run out to the van and want to go. At that time, I was a little young, but Rose took me on anyway because I kept coming out to the van. I started going to the Peace Center, and a lot of things was going on in my life at that time. I wasn't really aware of it because that's one thing about Rose. She never let me know what was truly going on, but she just made life better for me. My mom was a drug addict, so a lot of times she didn't do everything that she was supposed to do. So Christmases and birthdays and just all around every day, Rose made better for me. She was like a second mother to me. And I just remember her, when I would come in the room, she would just say, "Is that my Londa?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's me." And she just hugged me and always made me know that I was special. I did a lot of things teenagers probably shouldn't do, and she would step in and correct them, but she never ever judged me or scolded me. She always just taught me what was right and what was wrong, and I appreciate her for that. That made me the person that I am today, which is a social worker, a mother, I'd have to say a good mom, and most of that is due to Rose.
So Rose came back into my life, and she has told me you stay sober for a whole year. I was working at Bob Evans. For a whole year, I get your job back. And I said, Rose, you can't do that. Did too much damage. So when that year came up for me being sober, Rose said, are you ready? And I'm like, ready for what? So she said, let's go get your job back. She had set it up with Mr. Gilman's, and we had a meeting. I got my job back.
I think about like I'm in school now, trying to become a social worker, and some of the examples of what Rose gave to me and my girls and our family has been that you can do anything that you put your mind to.
If I could use 6 words to describe Rose, it would be loyal, friend, leader.
She was hilarious. She was outspoken. She was bottom line.
Powerful, empathetic, spiritual, and God-fearing. Like my sister said, a leader, a friend, and a role model.
An angel sent straight from heaven.
A mother, a friend, a confidant, a motivator.
She taught you about love. It was a responsibility, an obligation. And the reason she said that, because that was a word that you couldn't say to her. And when she told you she loved you, she wanted to teach you how to love. And I was lucky she taught me how to live.